I'm not going to be entrapped by my parents, my upbringing. I'm going to go the other way. Gosh, that's still in response to something that may not be a healthy, something that you own for yourself. No different than if you embrace, as we so often say, gosh, I just embraced what I grew up with. I didn't know any better. And we say, well, that's not good. You should, be independent. And over here on the other side, I say, yeah, well, people are either embracing or they're rebelling. Either way, it's the catalyst of something that they're taking off from. And it's not stepping back and auditing the self. We so applaud the driven person that's going after something that we deem would be successful. We never ask if are they actually, enjoying the process? Are they fulfilled?
Yes. Well, hello there and welcome to this episode of The Terri Cole Show. Have you ever been curious about what drives you? Like what drives your actual behavior? What motivates you in life? Well, if the answer is yes, then I think you're going to love this episode with my new friend, Kevin Miller. So Kevin is a former pro athlete, respected personal development guide, top-ranking podcast host, published author, and father of 9 who has devoted himself to helping people elevate their personal experience and improve the way they show up for others. So he's got a great podcast called Self-Helpful. That's the name of the podcast, which has over 60 million downloads. And this book which is what we're talking about in today's episode, is called What Drives You? How to Discover Your Unique Motivators and Accelerate Growth in Work and Life. So I hope that you enjoy this interview with Kevin Miller as much as I enjoyed interviewing him. My pleasure to welcome Kevin Miller to the Terri Cole Show. Kevin, welcome.
Hey, I feel like I have known you for a while and been getting counseled from you through your book. So it's just a thrill to be here with you today, Terri.
Oh, so many things. Thank you so much for saying so. I said at the top of the show, I was just describing all of the different things that you've done in your life. And of course, we're going to come around to talking about your first book, What Drives You? How to Discover Your Unique Motivators and Accelerate Growth in Work and in Life. Right there, people. It's for sale right now. Go buy it everywhere. But I'm so interested because from a therapeutic point of view, so much of the work that I do has to do with what drives people's behavior. And so the fact that this is literally what we're talking about, how to tap into what drives us. So before we get to the book and what motivated this, I want to know from you, because you've had this so many different entrepreneurial experiences, pro athlete experiences. How did you end up here?
Well, thank you. It's a relevant question. I so enjoy being driven, even though and we may hit on it, there's a dark side of drive too, but I do so appreciate it. I've always been attracted to people with drive and struggled to connect with those who don't. And I found myself so often at a table with a friend, usually a guy, over coffee or wine or whatever, and hearing about their just apathy. Honestly, they seem like they have everything that they theoretically should want, and yet they're bored or frustrated or just feel like there should be something more. And I just inherently wanted to dig out what sparks them, what lights them up. I didn't know it as the thought of drive back then, but I wanted to know that. And you could find it usually, and they start talking about it and their demeanor changes. And then I just wanted to go on into the entrepreneurial thing of how can we get you doing this all the time? And that's how I got involved in helping people. It was a past business, helping people pursue self-employment. And I thought it was self-employment. That wasn't it. It was, I just want them inspired. I want them waking up every morning, curious and excited. And really, Terri, even in the past few years, I've really been humbled to realize just my own gratitude for that I wake up in the morning curious and excited, and that is not the norm. And it's such a great privilege. And I just want other people to experience that. And I want my own in a healthier place as well, because it hasn't all been perfect.
Here's the thing with the drive and what you said that resonated with me so much about people, like who we're drawn to, because think about driving, like who we're attracted to is a drive too. And I've been attracted to all different types of people in my life before I ended up with, marrying my husband. And one thing that I always say that is the most compelling to me is that he's so endlessly curious, but he's also so motivated. He's so driven. Whether it's to build a chicken coop from scratch or whether it's doing the cover of Rolling Stone magazine, in his actual profession, it doesn't matter. There's something so alive
Yeah.
about someone who is driven. And there's something so, to me, uninteresting. So I totally know what you're saying. Like finding out what drives other people. It makes sense to me that this book is, from all the stuff you've done. So before we get to the book, let's start with what compelled you, because you have a very popular podcast.
Mhm.
So let's talk a little bit about what compelled you to start your podcast.
Anything I did, I tended to gravitate towards wanting to communicate inspiration to people. Even back when
Mm,
it was cycling, and at some point, then we owned our own team in a big club. And it was back when email lists were kind of the way you did it. And I had an email list that just kept growing and growing. And that was, I realized the platform as a pro athlete to just influence people. And I could use that to inspire and just pass along, messages that were inspiring me. It was never from a place of, hey, I've arrived, let me show you this. It was, ooh, this is what I discovered. This is what's helping me. And can I share that with you? So no matter what I did, that was just the thread of just wanting to share. I'm somebody, I enjoy talking about ideas, thoughts and ideas and bringing them to life. That's what sparks me. There's other things that are fun to talk about that just aren't fun for me. And so
mm-hmm.
I would do that professionally, no matter what the platform of my work might be. And I've done that in a lot of different fields. And then podcasting just came because, Terri, I always enjoyed writing. I was happy there. And I just saw at some point that, oh my gosh, podcasting is growing. I can just take the blogs at that time and just read them. And so I started doing that. And then I got the opportunity I spoke for the Ziglar Corporation and got to
Mm-hmm.
spend a day with Zig Ziglar and got to be friends there. And that culminated into me having the Ziglar Show, which is what my show was for a long time up until, gosh, a year and a half or more ago. And then, not as many people know the Ziglar name. We still do presented by Ziglar, but as you know, the
Mm-hmm.
podcast is so host driven that we
Yeah.
changed it to self helpful, which was a good depiction of the show.
Mm-hmm.
And then by me, but that's really where it came from. It was just another medium. I think if I was, well, you know what, honestly, I used to say if I was left to myself, I would just write. That's not true anymore. Now, one of
Mm.
my places, honestly, of flow is a conversation between you and me. I'm not thrilled to be up on the stage, but right here,
Mm-hmm.
it's just, even if tens of thousands of people are going to hear right now, it's you and me. We get to talk about something that matters. And that's just a gift.
Yeah. Yeah. It's similar reasons why I love doing it. The reach is so amazing
Yeah.
with podcasts. So for your own, like for people who are wondering how to figure out how to be more motivated, because the way that I interpret what you're saying, discovering your unique motivators, how do you guide people towards doing that, their own unique motivators? How can people figure out how to be more motivated?
Yeah. Goodness, you're a therapist, this stuff so much. And for so long, I felt like the Holy Grail is figuring out, why is one person driven and another not? And I sure don't feel like I or anyone is able to totally define it. There's so much
Mm-hmm.
into it, but I was interested to find out the people who are driven. A lot of it was inspired or influenced, I should say, by my show. So having 200, I don't know what it is now, but well over 200 people, like you on the show, who are examining themselves, examining life, examining others to a degree. I realized they're driven. And why was that? Because you go back through their stories, most of their stories are not that good. If I look at the bookshelf in my studio and all the books everybody I've had on there, most of them are not privileged stories. Most of them
Right.
are fairly difficult. And really what came to me as I started researching it, started looking at it, and even auditing myself in the areas, especially where my drive was good, or it seemed to be producing fruit, it's because they knew their why. They knew why. So back to motive. But really, as I dug into that, I thought, what's underneath that? And what I came to, Terri, was values. That's at the bottom of it,
Mm.
is what do you value and authentically value, which takes, as you know, as a therapist, it takes a level of digging because you're going to give one answer and the real answer is probably five or so. I kind of want to do, that's my next book. I think it's the
Mm-hmm.
5 levels of why, because the first answer is not it. You got to dig down. And down at the bottom, if you can help people really discover it, most of them, I feel like, yeah, they got to find it. They don't know. They're not clear on it. And again, this is part of my story in some areas of my life. And when they figure out, oh, that's what I value, I found that's generally just that clarity. And I wish I could go back and rewrite some parts of the book or highlight some
Mm-hmm.
parts. I would make the word clarity more prominent. Just getting clear on what it is we value. I have found it's not always, it's not guaranteed, but generally
Mm-hmm.
that alone helps drive. It's not some big cataclysmic event, some
Nope.
gargantuan thing, but now, oh my gosh, that's what I value. And you can't hardly escape that. It can be a burden almost, I think, to some people to find, oh my gosh,
Mm-hmm.
that's what I value. And it's really hard to step away from that. And I find that when people figure that thing out, what they value, or on the other side, as you know, sometimes we're even more, we can get more clear more quickly on what we don't value, looking around and going, whoa, man, I don't value this. I'm not sure what I value, but it's not this. I'm going somewhere
Yeah.
else. And I find the drive towards the pursuit just happens. And again, it's not some huge thing. And that really was meaningful to me because I'd always struggled with that idea that some people are driven and some people weren't. I just didn't find that to be true. Like it's some lottery or genetic thing that they've got
Mm-hmm.
drive. Now it may be dormant and we're looking for that thing to help trigger them. But when the trigger happens, as you know, we can go from zero to hero in a moment almost.
Right.
So that was the interesting thing as I dug into motive, as you asked.
Mm. I think from a psychological point of view, I feel like there's so much psychology that is layered on what drives us. And I used to always think, and I think I was driven in my younger life. I was the fourth daughter of a very sports oriented and successful, I mean, white collar successful, but also sports successful father. And I really felt like I was the last chance to have a boy. And I was not. And I felt like I had sort of a chip on my shoulder to a degree where I was like, my drive was proving that I would be more successful than any stupid son my father could have had, right?
Wow.
For a time.
Yeah.
And I think that through my own therapeutic journey, I was able to see, because I was very driven at a young age and just corporate, just doing the corporate ladder thing. And in Hollywood, because I was a talent agent, I realized through the therapeutic process, I basically had a therapist inspire me to stop running, like to really
Mm.
get that what was happening. I thought, I'm just ambitious. What's wrong with that? Nobody says there's anything wrong with that. I thought I was running towards something. But through the therapeutic process, I was able to identify that I was actually running away
Yeah.
from something. And it was that slowing down, turning around, looking at this thing. Oh, you think you're less than. You fear you might be less than because of this. And then working through that, actually working through whatever the original injury is, because what ends up happening, right, is being driven or completely undriven. That's a symptom of potentially something else. Because I think you could have very successful people being driven by spite, being driven by, I'm going to prove them all wrong. You know what I mean? So what
I
is your take on
I
that?
did know it's a great point. And that was another one that I didn't, again, before digging into the book, I didn't really conceptualize that we think that I'm not going to be entrapped by my parents, my upbringing, and that stuff. I'm going to go the other way and I'm going to go
Mhm.
drive, that way. And I saw, well, gosh, that's still in response to something that may not be a healthy, something that you own for yourself. No different than if you embrace, as we so often say, gosh, I just embraced what I grew up with. I didn't know any better. And we say, well, that's not good. You should, be independent. And over here on the other side, I say, yeah, well, people are either embracing or they're rebelling. Either way, it's the catalyst of something that they're taking off from.
Yeah.
And it's not stepping back and auditing the self. Like I now have to work with my own kids on saying, guys, I cannot help but brainwash you. I'm so sorry. It's just impossible. I can't expose you to everything. Let's get over here and I'll pay for your counseling to help figure out how to disentangle yourself, unenmesh yourself from that and figure out, what do you understand? What do you value? What do you want? What do you want to have, a drive that's healthy? Because yeah, we so applaud the driven person that's going after something that we deem would be successful. We never ask if are they actually, enjoying the process? Are they
Yes.
fulfilled? And I struggle on the happiness. I don't think that everything about drive is supposed to make you happy. There's some things I'm driven towards that I'm burdened by, and sometimes it's grieving, but I care about it. It's immensely fulfilling. It's not all about happiness, but it's at least authentic, and I know it's on the table, and I'm in agreement, which in the book I call it, in alignment with my drive. That's a big thing in and of itself.
But Kev, I think that a really good example of something that is a burden
Mm-hmm.
is and a privilege and fulfilling, at least my experience, is writing a book.
It's yes,
What
I
was
would.
your experience of writing a book?
It was. I was humbled by that. I thought it would be a lot easier, and especially when you go with a traditional, big publisher, the hoops you have to jump through. So I had to look at the pros and cons. It was a learning process. We could do a show just on that. I am looking towards the next book already. I will do it the traditional publishing route, but now at least I know the
Mhm.
score, so I will do it a lot more healthfully and happily, I think, and know some of my boundaries. Actually, that's what I didn't know, Terry, that now I know some
Yep.
boundaries with the book. And whatnot. So that was a hard process. And it also, I mean, gosh, just on that topic, that hit up against my own issues of I am a strong starter. I am not a strong finisher. At least with work stuff. 'Cause every time I say that, I think, well, gosh, as a professional cyclist, apparently I did figure out how to finish strong there. But in other things, in building and creating whatnot, I love the starting process, bringing something to life. I don't enjoy the end. Well, as Patrick Lencioni in his working genius profile, he said he calls that tenacity. And my tenacity at
Mm.
the end, like to finish a project like a book, is very poor, which is why mine was about 2 years late. So, yeah,
Yep.
yeah,
Yeah, I totally identify with that. And the process of like the thing with drive, I think it's really important the point you make about happiness, and
yeah.
that there are things that as long as we're making these choices consciously, and part of my mindset sort of moving forward as I'm working on my next book, and the manuscript is due September 1st. Um,
Congratulations.
well, yeah, so congratulate me on September 2nd, buddy.
Okay,
But
fair enough. Fair enough.
but the mindset, right? When we all have a different relationship to what drives us to get things done, like to become people who can complete things, who can get something done. And I was liken writing books, at least my experience of writing my first book, and now I have a workbook coming out at the end of October. It's like being in grad school, because
Right.
like no matter what else I'm doing, I'm thinking I should be writing. I'm thinking I should have gotten up earlier. I'm thinking like ways that I don't normally think in my life. I'm pretty, I live a life that's pretty much aligned with what I want to do.
Yeah.
But there's a certain amount of psychological pressure in the drive for me to complete things, whether it's prepping for a big talk, whether it's doing a TED talk, whether it's any of those things. When I'm the lead up to it, I'm always like effing miserable. Like I'm always saying to my husband, like, why do I agree to do? I fucking hate this. Like I don't even like doing this. And then of course, when you're done doing the thing, whatever the thing is, and it goes great, and you love it, and you feel like maybe you helped somebody. At least for me, I'm like, I love this. This is amazing. But it's like every time you forget how painful the lead up is. And maybe that's like something deficient in my drive. You know what I mean? Or maybe it's just a psychological way I got to do it.
Well, no, I appreciate you bringing up that point, Terry. It reminds me of, the old quote. I cite this a lot, and I never remember the details, but something to the effect of, find the work you love, and you'll never work a day in your life, and
Yeah.
it'll all be happy and fun and play. And I think that's BS. Because if it's really fulfilling, it's going to have stuff that you've got to do that stinks. And I wish I could delegate it all. There are pieces of the podcast that I wish I could delegate it, but it's what I do. It's my perspective on this. So I need to write the title and the
Hmm.
description of the
Yep.
podcast, and I need to
Yep.
do the pieces that they want you to do in the book, like the intro, which I didn't want to do an intro, and yet I see the
Hmm.
value of that. And so are these. Oh my gosh, recording the audio, which I had to audition to record my own audio, which pissed me off. Thank goodness they paid. Then I find out they're going to pay me. That was a little better, but um, it was
But they
still
picked
weird.
you. You got the part to play
I got
you.
I got the talent agent picked me, Terry, and I got the part to play me. I hope I did it well. We'll see. Um, interestingly though, the book's out, but the audio is still not out. It's still delayed. I don't know what happened with that, but yeah, it is interesting. Yeah, looking at Drive like it's going to be all fun and games. I don't see that. I'm so grateful.
Mhm.
Again, I love the word that you pulled out about your husband being curious. That's a word I would have
Mm.
highlighted in my book even more so, because since I've written it, it's one I've become to be enamored with more. I love the opportunity to be curious about something. I would put that would be one of the things, a primary thing I would put more in the book. Find that thing that you
Mhm.
are endlessly curious about. Though, as you know, I think a lot of people don't know what it is, but go discover that thing that you are curious. I had that discussion with somebody recently talking about podcasting, and they were questioning the topics. I said, dude, if you're going to do this and pump out content, you better find something that you are endlessly curious about, or you're going to be like the other 4 million podcasts out there who post for a while and then run out of stuff to talk about. So
Yeah.
be curious. That's a big one. And then one, again, I think a lot of people got to discover, because they may have never touched on that, never experienced it.
Yes, and think about, when I'm trying to help therapy clients get in touch with who they are, right? Get
Yeah.
in touch with more or more development of the authentic self. I'll ask, "Hey, so what brings you joy?" Or what are you interested in? Or, and a lot of times people don't know. So I'll always say, like, well, what TV shows do you watch? And what magazines, if you read magazines, do you read? Or trying to help them sort of narrow down the thing that could spark them. But
Yeah.
there's also so much information out there right now that if you're unsure, you're like, I'm not sure what I'm interested in. Start listening to podcasts, right?
Yeah.
Kevin, you do this great job on your podcast of having a whole array of different, interesting people doing interesting things in the world. Start there, right?
It is the exposure I love. Yeah, I get to do this show, Self Helpful, and have people like you in all walks of life, from celebrities to therapists to professors to whatever, and be exposed to so much. And it just continues to feed. I think I want to try that. I want to do that. And yeah, today, my gosh, you can go watch endless, documentaries and stuff, and then go, just experience life as well, and go do it face to face. You can't beat face to face, but so many opportunities to do that and see what sparks you, just finding that little thing that going, oh, I resonate with that. That's how I think about it. I resonate that. I can just kind of
Yes.
feel that in my soul. Though,
Yep.
to what you say too, I was, I'll say, privileged and fortunate enough to be somewhat in touch with my values to keep me on the right path. But it was amazing how much self-awareness I was still lacking, Terry. And
Hmm.
I haven't even figured it all out. You may be able to define it better than I do, but there was a lot of the pieces that I was, but then especially in regards to my own emotions, that I wasn't. And so as I continue to dig in and understand my feelings, not just my thinking, that I'm good
Hmm.
about. I can tell you what I'm thinking. Tell you what
Yeah.
I'm feeling. And I have been in the consummate answer of I don't know, but I'm learning. I'm increasing that vocabulary and understanding a lot, and in that, and am able continually to align my drive, which is, to your book, understand my boundaries. I got a text right now
Hmm.
to my wife about an event that's going on. I said, honey, I feel like I should be there, but I'm reading another book on boundaries, and this one's just getting me. And I'm only going to go to appease you, and that's probably not good. So I'm
Hmm.
working through that. So it all overlaps. It's so amazing.
It's so great to be able, though, to be honest. When you
Yeah.
think about, when I was looking at your whole life story, all the things that you've done, there's two things that really stick out as like not normal, so to
Okay.
speak, right? A, you built a house made of straw,
Hmm.
9,000 feet above the earth in the Rocky Mountains. All right, that's
Yeah.
one. And you
That's
still live there with five of your kids and four grandkids. Is that accurate? And Terry, your wife?
five kids. The four grandkids don't live in the house. They're about
Ah,
5 miles away with one of my other kids as well. Yeah, that was. I mean, it really is a good analogy, though, of a value. I valued, space and the outdoors and the mountains. I fell in love with the mountains at 19, just right out of high school,
mm,
and fell in love. And it was always just a part of my heart. And I wanted the kids to experience what gave me so much life. Of course, now in that, they're not experiencing a lot of other things that might give them
Yeah.
life, admittedly, but I did want to. And so we built a house and we didn't have the time, the money, or the know-how to do. And it has been such a gift. That was a drive. That was an example of a drive that, man, I did not enjoy the process of building a home. But gratefully, like a book, it has a deadline, especially if you got a jumbo mortgage. It's got a deadline on it. And so you got to finish
Right.
it. And then you're there. And then you get your certificate of occupancy, which anybody who built a
Mhm.
house knows. And you move in and you're there. All that effort, paid off. It was such an incredible. My wife says it was one of the greatest things that I ever did for my own personal growth was to build this house. It's weird. I mean, there's a weird story behind that. It's a big house and it's got straw bale walls. It can get cold up here and it's like living in this big warm cocoon. I love the atmosphere out here, but yeah, there's not a lot of oxygen. It's weird. It's a lot of things that some of it honestly is a result too. Even the kids, as a result of driving fast. I didn't really know where I was going or why. I didn't audit that. I didn't have a lot of clarity on some of it. I was just driving fast. And that's, some of the dark side of drive that can get us all.
So for you, what happened in your life when you were driving fast? Because again, there's so many metaphors, we don't have to do them, but there's a million that have to do with you being a cyclist and all the things.
Yeah.
What gave you the ability to pause and sort of mindfully use that drive to go towards where you have decided you want to go?
Gosh, Terry, I feel like I'm still learning to pause. Having clarity on my values kept me from going too awry. But I didn't pause and I just drove fast. And that's why it looks good on paper that I've started 19 different, business initiatives. But a lot of that is because I was just going after the next shiny object, something that was of interest to me and did it and didn't really count the cost, didn't really think, how's this going to pan out? And I'd burn myself out over and over. I'd sabotage the money because I was trying to show everybody I was all about heart. And so I'm driving and driving, but I didn't pause. It's interesting. I had Arthur Brooks on the show recently and his latest book, Strength to Strength. So in that second half of life, I feel as driven as ever. And yet there's a lot of the places or the ways I've been driving, I'm just tired. Just my soul is tired of. And now my drive, I'm trying to consciously change my drive. So on my next mountain bike ride, instead of the drive to get another PR, which I can't do that forever. I can still do it
Right.
sometimes, but at some point I can't be as fast as I was as a pro cyclist. Now the drive is to stop, like you said, is to pause. Stop and pause at this beautiful high mountain lake where nobody else is and watch the bald eagle soar and let it resonate in my soul and take that home and do something for my family or my audience or myself with that pause. And it came up recently as a thought, an analogy that I just had somebody on the show, Britt Frank. I don't know if you know Britt. She's another therapist, but has a book
Yeah.
called The Science of Stuck. And she's the second or the first person that used this idea of a manual car, which not everybody knows these days, but you're in first gear and most of us are running around driving as fast as we can, redlining the thing. And the only way to get into second gear and actually go faster is to, as you said, pause, get off the gas, put the clutch in and pause to get to the next. And oh my goodness, that's something I could have used that message a long time ago because I was just so intent on thinking I had to keep it, gas pedal down and pegged in the red. And it manifests, as you know, and it's now I'm in therapy that I should have been in 30 years ago.
Yep.
That's helping me reframe my paradigm and reprogram my nature that I have just wired in. I would say, I'm tempted to say hardwired, but I think you would correct me and say, no, you can change that. But son of a
Correct.
gun, is that hard? It's hard.
It is. It reminds me of what Wayne Dyer talks about, the sort of like the morning of life, and then in the morning of life when we're younger, like it's all about acquisition. It's like
Yeah.
the family, the kids, the thing, the house, we want the thing, we want to prove, we want another professional race, we want whatever. And that if hopefully you're doing your work, as we get into more of the afternoon of our
Yeah.
lives, it's about meaning, right? It's like we want more meaning. am I doing something that's making a difference in the world? And I think that part of what you're talking about with the drive and the ability to pause, or the inability to pause, or learning how to pause,
Yeah.
is that when you're driven by nature, more driven, right? We were talking about people being not as driven, people being more driven. It's like pausing is not natural because going is natural.
Yeah.
And I found that I mean, what do you do? Any kind of mindfulness practices, meditation, breathing, anything to help you with the pause, or no?
Yes, totally. It's a part of my life to just, even like, right, you say that, and my first thought is, let the shoulders down. Let the shoulders down. Yeah, one of my daughters sent me a little meme that said, somebody said, I'm afraid at this point that if I unclench my jaw and let my shoulders down, I will just melt like cotton candy in the rain. I thought, dude, I get that. And so it's letting the shoulders down. And when I think about that, my next thought is a big breath. So box breathing has become a really consistent
Mm.
part of my life. I'll literally even watch, I'm always wearing my little wearable device, and I'll look at my heart rate and go, I'm going to get my heart rate down. And one of the things that's literally helped me in the past 60 days is, of course, everything that I cite is from somebody I had on the show. That's what I'll be doing about you
Mhm.
now. Somebody, that after you're on my show is talking about that. But it's a guy, Jake Eagle, and he's a therapist, a 30-year therapist, and he co-wrote a book called The Power of Awe. And it was on
Mm.
microdosing mindfulness. And it's taking a moment, just a moment, if that's what it is, to stop and for me, I can just look out the window at the forest and just experience awe, which was more than just the thinking. Again, I got to get out of my mind, just the thinking of gratitude,
Mm.
but to feel what it's like to be out there. If I don't just go out there anyways, and to feel it and to step into that. So yeah, I'm doing that a lot. I have time this is my home office. So the couch behind me is where I sit in the mornings with my feet up and my coffee or tea or whatnot. And a lot of times I'll just look. That's been different. Maybe not pick out the book that I'm reading, like, yours right now, right away, and my journal, and just sit there and look. Yeah, it just look at I have a son that's very calm and peaceful, my oldest son, and we talk about him teaching us, me primarily. I would be the one to go, Caleb, don't just sit there, do something. And he taught me to, Dad, don't just do something, sit there. Oh my gosh, that's so, yeah, like you were talking about the pause. We don't get applause for the pause.
Mm-mm.
I don't feel innately productive during the pause, and I'm addicted to being productive. And
Yep.
yet now I feel like some of that, I think it was Michael Hyatt I had on the show, and he says he's
Mm.
learning that his quote unproductive times lead him to being the most productive he's ever been. Which even there though is kind of a causation thing. Even that sometimes I need to get out. Just stop it. Just be. Just be.
Right. But I
That's
think that because there's a fear mind element, though, of the pausing,
yeah.
and of if you are sort of driven with the achievement in mind, and so much of this, obviously, Kev, this is so unconscious, right? I was able to change my life. You changed your life when these things came from the basement of your mind, your unconscious mind, to the main part of the house, and we make conscious decisions to go. I want to be driven by something else.
Yeah.
I want to be driven by my values. I don't want to be driven by revenge, or I don't want to be driven by whatever. And I think that the pause is where we can create more mindfulness. The box breathing that you were talking about, which is also called 4x4 breathing,
Yeah.
where you're just breathing in for 4, holding for 4, exhaling for 4, holding it out for 4. There's so much simplicity now in our
Yeah.
ability to pause, but the value of pausing is for those who are more driven. And I think that there are people who are going to want to read this book, who are going to go get this book. And you guys, the book is called What Drives You: How to Discover Your Unique Motivators and Accelerate Growth in Work and Life, by my pal, Kevin Miller. And that's available. You can purchase it anywhere right now. If you want to be more intimate with your own motivation, if you want to harness the power of your own drive in a way that feels good, feels aligned with who you are, with what your mission in life is. And I just love the way you walk us through it in the book. Like if anybody wants to get more motivated or understand their motivation, I really do think this book is for them. So before we go, tell us what you're lit up about right now.
What I'm lit up about right now. It's interesting. It's right along the lines of what you're talking about is being driven, enjoying that, kind of looking at the Arthur Brooks, kind of the second half of, or you talked about Wayne Dyer, the second
Mm-hmm.
half of life of being driven, but being aware of how I feel. Back to the emotions. How do I feel about that? And I don't want the drive because I think driven people can also be tiring. They can be, oh my gosh, it's just exhausting. Can you just stop it? And I think people even get tired of that now. Can I just not quit striving all the time and
Yeah.
just be? And I think, yes, yes, absolutely. But I look at it and go, that's a drive. So I'm driven towards peace. I want to be driven towards the
Mm-hmm.
pause. Maybe that's my follow-up book, Driven to the Pause.
Mm, I like
And
it.
yeah, yeah. So it is, I'm lit up about that and finding more peace. And honestly, what I'm lit up and burdened by a little bit is
Mm-hmm.
boundaries is a lot of it, Terry. And I'm not just kissing up with that. I mean, it literally is because that's where I have gone awry. And my drive is to be limitless, no excuses, yes to everything,
Mm-hmm.
fix everything, take care of everything, feed my Superman God complex.
Yep.
And now coming off that, go, man, it's tiring. I don't have to, and it's okay. That's probably where I'm lit up about because it helps my soul, my health, my wellness. And I realize from that, then I get to be better for everybody else as well. So that's probably at the top of my lit up list, right along with dinner every night, because that always lights me up. So that's top of the list, man.
So what you're saying though, Kev, because usually the last question, and I am going to ask it, is personally, what has been your most challenging boundary struggle, and how did you overcome it if you have?
That's it. Being the yes man. I
Yep.
say yes because saying no, it doesn't feed my Superman complex. My God, I had a discussion this morning about they were talking on leadership, and it's not my favorite topic. I feel like leadership. We all want to influence people. I like talking about influence, but even there, I have taken that role. I think a lot of us do, along with responsibility for the other person's outcome. That's been my life, which
Mm,
where that leads. And so it took me to burnout and bitterness and relational strife with my wife specifically, but other people as well. And I sabotaged so many things through that because boundaries just felt so bad. And so I'm coming around the corner of that, of looking at going, no, that's going to help me. It's going to help everyone for me to have some. And it's ludicrous not to. And
mhm.
it just wasn't a part of my life. It wasn't a part of my belief system. Honestly,
Yep.
it wasn't a part of my belief system. I had a religion against that. How's that?
Yeah.
Um,
No, I
yeah.
so I so get it, and what you're saying is so it makes so much sense, and in fact, it's exactly what my second book is about: high
Mm.
functioning codependency. That's what you're describing,
Yeah.
and of course, it's based on a lack of boundaries, but there's something that is so beautifully liberating when you get to the point of allowing the chips to fall where they may when they're someone else's chips.
That's a deep breath that
Right
I'm
there.
I'm learning, and I'm so grateful that you and I get to talk further, having you
I
on
know.
my show because I got questions for you. I'm looking for a free therapy session.
I'm in. I'm
All
so
right,
into it.
deal.
Thank you so much for being here, Kev. I appreciate it. The book, you guys, is What Drives You: How to Discover Your Unique Motivators and Accelerate Growth in Work and Life. You want to go listen to Kevin's podcast, which is amazing. Where else can people find you, Kevin?
Yeah, the podcast is self-helpful. If you type that in, you'll find it. And then, of course, the book, What Drives You, can find anywhere else. And those will get you through to me. My website's kevinmiller.co. But most people tune into the podcast,
Yep.
and that's what keeps us in contact, well, 4 times a week at this point.
Right on. All right. Well, thank you so much for being here. I look forward to more conversations with you
I
tomorrow.
do too, Terry. Thank you so much.